WFM. RTE.
Choice music prize.
Hi everybody, lovely to see you all here today as part of RTE Choice Conversations, one of the biggest days in the music industry calendar in Ireland, so delighted to be back. My name is Gill, I run AIM Ireland, we're Ireland's trade association for the indies, and really pleased to be invited back to host a panel this year. Today is a topic that has not been far from anyone's mind over the last few months. We're going to have an open conversation, I guess. The lofty title, The Future of Music, applies, but also we're going to be talking a little bit about AI, a little bit about future technologies. We are all sitting here as people who are actively working in the music industry, and we really want to give that perspective around AI. So it's going to be less of a copyright, human artistry campaign discussion, and really more about, what are the day-to-day impacts, and where do we see the opportunities and where do we see the challenges, and really looking at how, our experiences in the music industry are informing how we approach this new change. My panelists are going to do a much better job of introducing themselves than I would do of introducing them. So I'm going to hand it over to Petra first.
That's me. I'm Petra. I am here because I was the executive director of AMAEI, which is the European Music Managers Alliance, and that's when we started this collaboration. I've worked in marketing and publicity for film and television and music for a very long time.
Hi everyone, I'm Jaime. I come from Madrid and I'm the CMO of a company called Melboss, which is artificial intelligence-based technology for music artists to help them with their go-to-market strategy. I will talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, really nice to be here with you guys, and I hope you, I learn as much of you as you guys can maybe learn from me.
Hello everyone, my name is Ines and I represent Y Portugal, the Portuguese Music Export Office, which assists Portuguese artists and professionals in expanding their presence in international markets. I also have experience working in the music publishing field, because I currently work at IMPF, the Independent Music Publisher International Forum, and at Lusitanian, a Portuguese music publisher. Specifically, I'm responsible for publishing administration and registering lyrics on a specialized platform to ensure they are licensed as part of a European project. And during my master's in historical musicology, I also conducted research on the independent music industry with a specific focus on AMAEI, the Independent Portuguese Music Trade Association.
That's all really impressive. I think I'll give my background. I'm Gill. As I said, I head up AIM Ireland. My background is predominantly in label life. I would have started in EMI 20 years ago, would have worked for an Irish indie for a number of years called OMG Chart, and spent a lot of time as Director of Digital and Business Development for Universal Music, going out on my own in 2018 as an artist manager, music consultant. So I was kind of at the forefront of digital and changes within a major record label. And I think that I'm approaching AI very much with that. This seems familiar, that we've been here before. It's a sea change, but very much with open eyes to not just the challenges and the scare stories, but also the opportunities, particularly now working with so many independent teams who have less money and resources than the majors have, and seeing where it might be an opportunity for them. So we're going to kind of deep dive into that later. This has been a divisive question when I put it in front of the panel for prep. I always think when we're talking about technology, it's really interesting to look at, when did we all kind of come into the music industry? How has our consumption changed? So I'm going to ask each panelist, and I'll start with myself, a digital timestamp of where the music industry was in terms of technology. One, when I first became a music fan, and two, when I first started working in music. So for me, as a music fan, does In Utero count? Because I'm pretty sure that I was listening to the Beatles before I was born. But in terms of where music was at, it was very much vinyl. It was before the advent of CDs, but right at the advent of cassettes. In terms of where Ireland was at, we didn't have as many self-releasing and DIY artists. Back in 1981, there were still the gatekeepers and the major labels. And then in terms of when I started working in the music industry, it was professionally in 2003. So iTunes was king. Piracy was rife. It was all about to fall off a cliff. I thought I was going into solid industry, and within 3 to 5 years, there were redundancies left, right, and centre. And everything has changed. Downloads are still there. People are still downloading from iTunes. I don't know who you are, but I believe that you are doing it. But there's just been enormous changes and threats that have almost brought the recorded industry absolutely to its knees during my time working in the industry. So I'll hand over to Petra to give her perspective.
Well, my perspective is that, like, as Gill was saying, and as you all know, the industry is in constant flux, and it has been for a number of years. So every time I feel like people catch up, there's a new change. And the constant, obviously, challenge is to how do you stay ahead? And the answer is we can't. Because legislation, for instance, will always be behind, because you can't legislate what you don't know. So, and you can't hire for positions that you don't know should exist. So I think the industry's gotten better, not just the music industry, but all entertainment industries. They've gotten better at catching up. It doesn't take as long as it did with Pirate Bay, where it was like that enormous resistance has now been chipped away at. So I think we can pat ourselves collectively on our backs and saying that we're now at least trying to be at the forefront.
Yeah, definitely. Like the paradigm changes are first, they're much faster, but we're more prepared, and that's because of the digitalization of music. By the way, I'm going to circle back to your questions, like when did I become a music fan, and when I started working in music. I became a fan downloading music from Napster, music industry. Spent 5 to 15 minutes downloading one song, but yeah, I was waiting there, biting my nails for the new records. And then I started working in the music industry when Facebook arose, and the big data started to be a thing. So first I worked in music festivals. We were improving through data how they were basically managing their operations. And in terms of the importance of festivals using this data, it's into the millions of euros difference in revenue for them. So it's really important, and I think data is what's letting us having be a bit ahead of the curve and understand really where are the changes happening and how are we going to tackle them into the future. And this is part of the panel here.
So I'm 26 years old. So when I first started getting into music, YouTube and MTV were my primary sources for discovering new music. I used to watch music videos on TV to find new artists. I also remember during my teenage years I often listened to music on my iPod. And it was common in high school to download songs illegally using specific programs. I remember, don't do that. But despite still being young, I think I've witnessed a remarkable technological transformation in recent years. Because when I began working in the music industry just about 2 years ago, the streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, etc. were already well established, and also social media has become increasingly important for promoting artists and bands, offering new ways for artists to connect directly with their fans. And also when I entered the music industry, of course, the AI technology was already present, was already there. And It's not something new, but there was a notable increase in discussions about AI technologies, which became more accessible to everyone. And as many are aware, there was a notable and somewhat confusing debate about ChatGPT just last year. So this is my...
But I think that's a really good perspective, because I think a lot of people kind of equate the advent of everybody talking about AI with ChatGPT, and really what we kind of have to acknowledge is that we've all been using and users of AI for a number of years now, and that the term AI was coined in the 60s. Jaime, just given that your role with Melboss Music is and our role, we're all working on a project together to kind of use AI for good and big data to make it more practical and achievable for artists to break overseas in regions like Latin America, which would have been cost prohibitive. We're working with Emma, we're working with Melboss, we're working with Why Portugal on how do we do that for Irish artists, Portuguese artists in a cost effective way, and kind of use it to break down those barriers. So through Melboss, what are you seeing, in terms of what was the unseen AI that everybody was using, and now that everyone is talking about AI, is there a slight misunderstanding of how it's been applied?
Yeah, basically, AI has been running it has been, the term has been coined like 60 years ago, but we could see little bits of AI implementations from 20 years ago with recommendation engines and so on. Like many application software were using AI. But now what happened is back in November 22, I think, ChatGPT kind of arose and now it's accessible for everyone. So why is it accessible for everyone now? Because they needed feedback. These companies needed to understand if their outputs for artificial intelligence were good enough for people to be accepted. That's why first you have this openness about such a powerful tool through the large language models. And the second, don't be scared, because they are using also the marketing strategy to say that you guys are going to lose your job, or you're not going to be able to find jobs. And this is a marketing strategy. So they wanted to have people on board testing and having the feedback from real users to understand that these large language models have been efficient for the people. Us at Melboss, we stumbled upon this new situation because we started working in a recommendation engine for music artists based on different data across streaming platforms and social networks. And suddenly, ChatGPT appeared, and of course you can integrate this technology in your applications. So for us, what it is like the biggest change was that we could offer a new way for the people to interact with our application, and like the user interface, what you need can be asked to platform and it will be answered in a more natural way. So this is like the biggest change for us, and we have been doing a lot of research, a lot of alignment, so the people is satisfied, and everything that apparently for most users is really hard to understand. Now we have a companion that helps people understand, make the language more accessible. So data, complex data, and so on.
So with a large company like Melboss, you had to pivot quite quickly, but in a positive way to enhance your product. We're a small trade association. We're a very small team, but I've definitely seen the benefit of using AI in my day-to-day life. At first it was brutal, but I've trained it like a little Tamagotchi, and now my ChatGPT is pretty good. Certainly it helping me, skip 5 steps of a task. It still needs a lot of human input and a lot of refining and a lot of experience of being 20 years in music when we're going to have any output. But it really has become so much smarter in 18 months, which is great. And it means that small organizations and small labels can cut out some of the time that they would have spent. They can maybe allocate more resource to different areas. Petra, what are your thoughts around the potential impact on jobs, on employment, and on how companies, but specifically music companies, will fare in the future with the advent and use of AI?
Well, no, but I think that I think we should all be aware of the systemic impact of the tech that we are using and how that changes the creative industries and music specifically, given that it will change who we hire and fire. And at this point, sorry if this is like scaremongering, as you're saying, but I mean, it is affecting how major labels and media conglomerate and even the tech conglomerates, they're getting rid of a lot of people to have a generational shift. And how does that, I think I don't really have any answers to your question. I only have like additional questions, which is how will that affect creative industries that are based on knowledge, on kind of an awareness of all the things that aren't quantifiable. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, that if we have A&R departments who are mostly data-driven, if we have marketing and comms departments that are also mostly data-driven and kind of mostly consisting on prompt experts, how do we find the talent that isn't a derivative of what we already know? And I think that's something that we need to, and I'm not saying, oh, let's stop technology, quite the opposite, but how do we work alongside of it? I think that's really kind of important to look at, because who's going to spot the next Stormzy? I don't know if we can't write something that is based on something that we already know, how will we find it? And how do we nurture it? How do we know how it will connect with an audience? Like, I think those are questions that we all need to have at the forefront of our consciousness when we talk about these things.
Yeah, and I think, I do think for years there has been that discussion piece, even before everyone was speaking about AI, but around data and around how, I've sat in major label boardrooms where it's death by dashboard, because it's before some things even had a chance to get off the ground, it's been written off because it didn't make New Music Friday, or the first week didn't go the way the dashboard says. So I think we've been struggling with that for a while. And I always bring it back to, we are an industry that originally was based on gut instinct, expertise and learning and experience and all of that. But certainly within A&R teams, a gut instinct. And I think it's become a challenge for a lot of people in those departments to kind of fight for their corner when the data doesn't back it up. And I do wonder if, as you said, if we are going to face a bumpy period where the AI tool says, do not sign Billie Eilish, and I remember being in the label when they signed Billie Eilish, and there was a lot of, so weird, like they make it in their bedroom, they're going to have to get a real producer, all of this kind of stuff, so you can't, there's a human magic there with music that I'm not sure can yet be replicated or spotted without a human eye.
But I think that maybe the flip side of that coin is that, because we're talking about generative AI, but a lot of it is derivative AI. So if we have a sea of like Eurovision runners-up, it's really easy to spot the Billie Eilishes. Maybe that's the positive side of it.
Yeah, definitely pattern recognition is one of the things that is most important for AI to have this kind of driven decisions in the music companies. It's all about, we like to say AI is making knowledge accessible, so now wisdom is the most important thing that you should put out there to have this recognition of good artists who are going to be successful, and what are the what is their place in the music industry. This is the AI is not substituting making the substitution of humans. It's a tool, so it's a tool that everyone thinks should use, because it augments your productivity. It lets you decide among like bigger numbers, bigger amounts of data. And in the case of death by dashboard, which is something that is pretty common in the music industry to take these decisions, AI is definitely helping those decisions in a way that we are more. I don't know. Like I'm sorry with my English is a bit broken now. Well, the point is
in a more positive way,
Yeah.
and maybe to use your own term, it might even help us democratize signings, and maybe even go the other way and democratize things like hiring, where maybe the bias might be taken out of things a little bit as well.
certainly, human bias is kind of removed of the equation, letting more opportunities for people who is based more on their own production art and not in their networking, for example, which is a thing that generally artists should struggle with or normally struggle with because of their nature or your nature of like a bit being away from the social standards.
If we teach it to take biases out, if not, we'll perpetuate them. Why isn't
Your mic is...
the machines hate me?
You go against the machines
I
now.
know. No, but it is because we get out what we put in. So if we put biases in, that's exactly what we'll get. We'll get make an image of a human. It will be a white man. So I think we need to really not just sit back.
Yeah, generative models are based on human production that happened before, and how it's addressed by artificial intelligence is by just stitching things in order based on the human feedback. So that's there are biases there, but it's not only like in generative AI, it's also in the pattern recognition way of AI to understand when something is going to be successful in the ecosystem that you offer this thing. In terms of music, would be recognizing an artist much before than a human can recognize it because of certain parameters that the artificial intelligence understand by comparing big pools of information that not a single human could.
So pros and cons. We did a really deep dive yesterday in a workshop around AI, and we were recapping it this morning. And, it was kind of equal parts very exciting, equal parts kind of terrifying. There was a lot of discussion, as we've said here, about potential loss of jobs. Will you need a music producer in the future? Will you need a co-writer? Will you need a live engineer, or will you just have a really great AI tool that sits on your laptop and takes in everything and then feeds it back? Yeah, I'm going to put this level up or not. And if you're a solo artist in Ireland and you're getting €1,000 for a show and your live engineer is 150 or 175, or you pay $9.99 a month for an AI model to be your sound engineer, you might go for AI. There's a lot of potential impacts, not just on the artist side of it, but on the professional side of it as well. And I'm conscious we're in an educational institution today where people are, a lot of you here are preparing for careers in music, which is already really tough. It's already really hard to have a sustainable career in music. Thank heavens for places like BIM, for Sound Training College. At least you now have a pathway in there. But I'd like to ask the panel, and Ines, I might start with you on this. How do you think that educational institutions can future-proof for AI when it comes to how they teach students and how it's discussed?
So I also think that it's important to stress also the positive sides, because with every new technology we have problems, but there is always opportunity. So I think it's important also to understand that it's crucial to recognize that AI should not and cannot replace the creativity of human intelligence, and that we should teach that the ideal should be a combination of the two things. Like Jaime said, AI is like a tool that should support, for example, I think should support specific stages of production for quality control, and should not replace like our own creativity. So I think this should be stressed also in like in educational programs.
To make it more about, through this journey, actually empowering students who are going to go into the workplace to know their value and maybe even up their value if we are to enter what was yesterday described as the AI winter, which was very doomsday, but makes a lot of sense that, you know, at some point we're just going to enter into this place where everybody has access to AI and the quality drops and the output drops and everything you read online drops and everyone's CV doesn't look great because they've all used the same thing.
Yeah,
So maybe there's the opportunity there to actually put more value back to students and more empowerment.
There is a blueprint of things generated by AI. When you go around the internet right now, you see a lot of expressions that are repeated in many places, and you understand immediately that it's generated by AI. So it's the feedback that is this content is going back to the libraries, and then we will find soon a time where this generated content will be not as efficient as it is right now.
Can I go off script and give you an example? Please. Because I was at TK Maxx yesterday because we all need to look pretty and we're all cheap. And I was looking at 2 different serums because we all need serums. And I was looking at the one and then kind of ambling along, looking at the other. And it was like, oh, I've seen that before. And it was 2 different products from 2 different brands, had the exact same copy on it, like word to word to the comma. And it was like, oh, this product will make you this pretty and this young and da-da-da. Like it was all exactly word by word the same. So I don't know where I'm going with that. But just kind of as a warning, we can't just trust AI to do our job for us. I think it was just reflecting back to what you were saying. It needs us to work with it very carefully.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and it is an important thing to supervise those outputs of the artificial intelligence, and that you are using it as a co-pilot to help you out, as a tool that will free you from some tasks that are annoying to you as an artist, and just use it as a support to focus on what really makes you an artist. So yeah, mostly making music. So. Yeah.
In terms of, you know, the music that we're hearing out there that is AI generated, there's a huge amount of talk about it, but I feel like every conversation I have with people, they all just talk about the Drake track, you know, because it was so convincing, because it took TikTok far too long to take it down, which I'm sure has contributed to their fallout with Universal. But do you think that at this point there really is that huge threat to music? Well, first of all, to songwriting and production, or do you think that actually what made the fake Drake AI track so good was somebody using AI tools, but they themselves being able to put together a really good track?
Arranging all the different parts, and yes, supervising this model that is bringing you different parts of music. It is based on stems and how like little parts that are recognizable as Drake's are labeled as Drake's identifiable, and putting them together is the work of a person. It's not AI who is like mixing everything and putting it to a perfectly rounded song that can be viral on TikTok. So it's just like human machine working together, and this is where AI is really standing out and letting people produce more things. But I would like, there's a lot of discussion in music creation with artificial intelligence, but I really think the most important thing for a music artist is leveraging on AI for having opportunities to access the market, because now, like, you're not going to be backed by like massive teams of people, like marketing professionals. You have to stand out somehow in a huge market, and AI is providing tools for you to kind of navigate through that, and to put your work out there with more like simple processes and less time and so on. So definitely look into tools that are helping you to reach the market, not to produce the music.
Yeah, and we can't be too myopic either. I mean, because music has evolved from Beethoven through Elvis to Beatles to Billie Eilish. and like we move forward and we make the most of it and we make the best of it. But I think it's the kind of the changes that we're seeing now. Obviously, we've never seen them before. We need to be aware and conscious of how we navigate it, because I feel like there's it's so easy to fall into either the dystopic or the utopic mindset, and you're one or the other, whereas reality is usually kind of ambling in between. And I think that's why sometimes like even these kinds of conversations get polarized, just like other conversations tend to be these days. So how do we navigate that space with a clear mind and open eyes?
Yeah, and I think it's important to show both sides of that. And I did a panel at Output in Belfast 2 years ago. So I think it was in around April of 2022. So before a lot of the tools that you're speaking about, Jaime, were really put together. There were kind of quite clunky project management tools, I would say. And it was a panel on how to be a DIY artist. And I was like where Ines is. So I was the last person on the panel. And the two blokes either side of me terrified everybody in the room by just saying, you need to be a digital marketing expert, you need to be a content expert, you need to be an excellent songwriter, an excellent producer, you probably need to also be an engineer. They really made it out like you need to be proficient at 24 careers, and it's so unmanageable and so disheartening. And I was at the other end kind of going, that's not doable. If you're a DIY artist, there are going to be some things that are more in your strengths and some things that you find easier to do, some things that are challenges. But regardless of all of that, there's a really, really long list if you want to release without a label or without a team. I think we said yesterday there are at least 12 to 16 platforms.
Yeah, 16 on average. You need to sign up and use 16 platforms. So like social networks, streaming platforms, other kind of supporting platforms for your music career. It is not normal for a person to be managing all like this amount of platforms to be able to do an efficient promotion, and streamlining those through like all the work that you have to put out. And you would also need to walk the dog sometimes, and you have a life, and it's really hard to manage for a DIY artist. And with artificial intelligence, you can really kind of streamline and simplify a lot of those tasks, a lot of this work.
Yeah, and Jaime is being very modest, but he did show us a tool yesterday that Melboss are working on called a Smart Music Manager. And as somebody who spent 5 years as an artist manager and drowned in spreadsheets and reminders on my phone of what we needed to do and when we needed to do it, trying to think of creative copy for everything, something like this would be, first of all, you're leaving no stone unturned, because like you said, I wouldn't have gone, okay, I need to be plugged into 16. And I was head of digital at a major label, but it changes so often that I do see, that this might make it, more democratized, and it might offer independent artists and DIY artists a real opportunity to break through an incredibly crowded 120,000 tracks uploaded a day marketplace.
It's hard to stand out. It's really really hard for artists, as you most of you know. I don't know if you have music released, but you normally struggle at the beginning. You need to not only produce and find a way to produce your music, but also after that you feel like you've accomplished something, but it's only the beginning. You have to learn marketing strategies. You have to learn when to post, where to post, for what reason, with what narrative. All these things are really complicated to sort out when you want to address a market. Actually, which market should I address as an artist? Because you have no idea. You have a projection of what your fan would be, but in general, no one has the recipe at the beginning. So, our application, what it's doing is basically like pouring data from different sources to help the artist achieve those things in a way that they don't need to be marketing experts, but they are implementing a good go-to-market strategy, and they understand the consequences of what they are doing. They have a simplified number of tasks that are achievable in in one day. You don't need to have like 5 days production for something. It's just a compound element of small little tasks that will help you achieve a great music career in the place where you want to be, in the market where you want to be. So, yeah.
I'm conscious of leaving enough time for Q&A because there's usually quite a few questions when it comes to AI, but I'd like to kind of pose one kind of wrap-up question to each of the panelists. It's a double-edged question. Ines, do you yourself use any AI tools in your everyday work life? And if so, what are they?
Yes, I use AI tools, particularly in the field of translation. When I have to, I think like ChatGPT is really good at reviewing linguistic. Yes, so that's like the main. Yeah, yeah.
I use it a lot for grammar check. Sometimes you have to rush sending emails and you just ask ChatGPT, am I screwing somewhere?
When I'm not sure of something, I always ask is it spelled correct or is it? Can you review my text from a grammatical point of view? And usually it does a good work.
That's an wouldn't have had, it's a privilege of being an English-speaking country. That is a huge addition, I'm sure, to your workflow. I'm sure everything is simplified somewhat.
For example, for a European project, the BELEM project, which stands for Boosting European Lyrics and Their Entrepreneurial Monetization, we are using it's a project that aims to facilitate the transnational export of European music by translating musical lyrics, enabling artists and authors to monetize any public appearance of their musical works across borders. And one of the aspects that was explored in this project was the use of AI tools for translations, for online automatic translations of musical text. And it was made by AI tools. And this automated process greatly speeds up and enhances the dissemination of musical texts. And I think it represents a valuable resource for both linguistically trained professionals and those without an extensive language expertise.
It's amazing. Petra, how about you?
Well, I'm going to be unimaginative and say ChatGPT as well. And does Canva count?
I'm not sure. I guess there's probably elements of AI. I mean, we all use Spotify every day, which has elements of AI.
So my presentations look just like everybody else's presentations.
Nice, I like it. So I'm going to hand over for questions. If Ines has to, we're at 3:43. Ines has to catch a flight, so we want to make sure that she gets back safely to Portugal. So we will hand over for questions, and when you need to go, please feel free to. Yeah, you're going to go? Okay. A little Melboss for Ines before we hand over to Q&A. And if you put Melboss into a translation AI bot, it will tell you that it's a round of applause. Okay, so we'll hand over to Q&A. Yes.
Hello, I'm I'm a big fan of the AI. I found out about it last year, and I'm very much like into you as well. Like what you said, almost every day, and I like what you were talking about, helping us as artists use it to do the things that maybe aren't of our biggest interest, such as writing press releases and whatnot. That has helped me hugely, and then you can use that to sort of make it your own. But you were talking behind me and Manu. You were talking a lot about these tools and the sort of prompts that you can give it, and I'm just looking at your website here, and it's like the AI powered music manager that will get you a Japan tour, or like all these things. So like clearly you can get so creative with it, and I've been using it to help me make press releases. But I bet there's millions and trillions of things I can get it to help me do. So I just wanted to pick you guys' brains as to give me some prompts. So what are these things?
Well, like what can they?
Yeah, sorry. So this AI tool, you were talking about it being a tool.
Yeah.
So that we can focus more on making the music and less time on doing these things that we naturally wouldn't
So maybe we could share kind of, when we're talking about Melboss and, Melboss promoting themselves saying you can book a tour in Japan, it's offering some limitless opportunities beyond just writing a press release.
That's the hyperbole thing when we were redacting this section in the website. Yeah, the idea is that it will empower you to reach your maximum potential as an artist. We're not focused in, as I said, like not in your means of production. So you do you in terms of creating the music. Once you have the music, we consider most of the artists, DIY artists especially, like they need help from someone, and that someone normally is in the shape of a manager, but not everyone has access to managers. Like in big cities, maybe it's like you go to a gig and you find a manager, you talk to them, you convince them, blah blah. Now it's hard to reach for some people. So what we will try to achieve is just like setting up all the technology that is possible, or efficient enough nowadays to give to provide it for the artists to be able to reach their maximum potential. It's not like one thing, is we're scouting the new technologies, putting them together for the artists to be able to use it in a very simple way, because most of the tools right now, except for ChatGPT, if you want to go into like the hard stuff, those things are not accessible for people who are a bit like strange to like coding or to this kind of thing. So for us, it was a matter of convenience to simplify and to arrange a set of like AI-based tools for the artists to be able to reach what they're dreaming about. Not everyone wants a Japan tour. Maybe they want to like tour around the city or have a residence somewhere. Oh yeah, it's basically that.
Great. Anyone else have any questions? Anything specific? We have a follow-up. Go ahead.
If that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'm just very intrigued about this whole AI thing. It's fantastic. And I think maybe when you learn about it or when you figure out about ChatGPT at the start, it's kind of like that. You're like, hey, could you help me rewrite this clumsy sentence I just wrote? But through this panel, it's really, for me, it's been very eye-opening to that. Maybe now, even, or in the future, you can get it to do so many different things, like you were talking about, figuring out even who is your market or what is your market. And I guess I would love to hear more about, is this through ChatGPT or are there other AI services?
AI, so it's hard to describe AI as of now. It's like people have a hard time to agree what intelligence is. So it's kind of hard, but I would say AI is something you create that is able to create other things that are not coded into the thing, into the machine. So it's like autonomously created by this thing. Power, like the ChatGPT is generative AI based on large language models, and it goes through a like big process of like neural networks and so on that it's kind of too techy, I would say, to explain. But it is not the only artificial intelligence. These tools are based on like different engines, different algorithms, and things that they are not creating. They're not creating something we coded into. They're just understanding the context and the ecosystem of the artist to offer new proposals for the artist, to like new actions for the artist to be able to like increase followers, increase audience, and so on. So it's Melboss.
Okay.
The workshop we did yesterday, a lot of the different tools were named and discussed, and quite honestly, even if you Google top 10 AI tools, you'll get some really good recommendations. A lot of them now at this stage are behind paywalls. There's some bad actors out there as well who are claiming to be something, but they're just basically getting the API of something that somebody else has done. Boomy is one for creating music in, but by all accounts, everybody thinks the output of it is absolutely shocking. There's DALL-E for creating artwork in. There's a lot out there, and there's probably a new platform or a new AI tool kind of coming online every week, which is always the same with new technology. You'll always just get everybody trying to enter the marketplace, and it can be hard to sift out the good and the bad. But I think that, just take a look at some of them. But I would say from my experience, just be really aware that some of them are, subscription as a service. And, before you know it, you've had an annual subscription come out of your Apple Wallet. I think the ones that are being talked about the most are the ones that have the most people using them. So they're delivering the best results, as opposed to maybe, something that has a cool title like Boomy, but actually is not super great in its output either. And also, there was a really good point made yesterday that the output from AI tools, if you're going to use them as an artist, you need to be careful. If you've generated artwork in DALL-E, that's great. It's not great for the visual artist who didn't get the job. But it's great for you because you're trying to save a buck and it all looks really great. But there's no copyright if you have generated it in DALL-E. So if the lady next to you, if it's a big hit, and you want to start making t-shirts with that artwork on it, it's going to be really hard for you to make a case that she shouldn't have done that, because you can't actually copyright the image yet that the AI tool has generated for you. So, it's your point, Petra, we're still behind on legislation while we're all actively using it. Yes.
I'm gonna try to go fast, but I'm also from Spain, and then there is another big example of a song that came out viral. So there is an artist called Gill, who all of her fans wanted her to do a collaboration with Bad Bunny, with another big artist, and then this collaboration happened because AI. And I want to ask you, my question is, because I'm using a lot of AI to help me with college, with my translations, with the Spanish and the English, but I'm also using now a little bit of AI, specifically ChatGPT, to help me to translate my lyrics for my band.
Okay.
And then there's some lyrics that happened that naturally I took few sentences from the AI. So my question is, will be legit in the future? Like, how do you credit AI in your songs? Like, are artists doing it already? Is this gonna happen? And are people taking it well, or are people taking it like, oh, you are using
this is not good, or
who wants to start? I don't know if this is answering your question, but it's kind of following up. I mean, there's AI generated, but also AI assisted. So those are two different things in how you work with it. But that also has different implications copyright-wise. So like you were saying, if it's AI generated, you can't really copyright it, or it's difficult to copyright. Whereas if it's AI assisted, you might be able to copyright it as your work. Not sure if that's really answering your question, but it's something to look out for. But also in terms of what the user agreements are, depending on which tool you're using, you're most likely giving them permission to use your work to create for the next person or the next million people. So I think that's also something to be aware of when you're using whichever tools you're using.
And also, a big kind of reasoning behind the EU AI Act is because, much as we've said time and time again here, those tools are only as good as the information that's put into them. So if you have loaded in all of Taylor Swift's lyrics and then you said, now make me some lyrics that are, really as catchy and as poetic as Taylor Swift, but I want it to be absolutely unidentifiable from Taylor Swift, and I wanted to send you, and you give it all the right prompts and it delivers you lyrics, you've still scraped Taylor's lyrics for them. So you could run into it. We're not there yet. We don't have it covered from a legislation point of view, but there's big question marks around the copyright, because most of these tools are scraping what was once copyrighted material. And that's not just across music, that's across all publishing.
And it's traceable. So you really can track when it's generated and the exact parts that are generated with AI, even if you mix it with other parts. But there's legislation is 2 steps behind. There's a lot of cases of plagiarism today that has been like in trials and so on. what makes a person the owner of like one sentence or one little part of music, one musical motive. It's always like gray area for the music industry, for the legislation. In this case, like I think no one nowadays is recognizing, I used for the chorus, I used artificial intelligence.
I think, I think Ed Sheeran's really well made point on that with the specific trial he was involved with recently was you can't copyright the color blue. There are some fundamentals there as well.
Yeah, and I think also for the music industry to also be aware that it's not just music and lyrics, it's also images that we need to be aware of. And that was what I don't know if you guys were following the actors and the writers strikes in the US last year. One of the sticking points was that the studios wanted them to sign away they wanted extras to sign away the rights to their image and likeness. So if you were an extra in a movie, you got paid a day rate, and they wanted to be able to use your image in perpetuity, meaning that you can be in any movie that they put out for the rest of eternity. So it's like, that's obviously what SAG said, and was their like doomsday scenario that might never become reality, but it's something to look out for. There's so many different facets to it.
Yeah. And I think that as different countries and certainly kind of within the music industry, it's like absolutely vital that we're plugged in with all other industries who are affected by this, because we're all affected in different ways. And actually it's been kind of newspapers who've been leading the charge in this in many ways. And we're quite good at having to adapt to enormous changes as an industry. But even here in Ireland, we're part of like a creative industries forum that, has a lot of kind of rights holders involved, and anything that has to go through the Dáil, we review it and we give a position on it, and anything that needs to be flagged. So that's kind of the dull, boring part of it, but it needs to be done as well to ensure that we can protect human artistry as well. I'm not sure if we're just coming up on 4 o'clock, unless there's any other questions, anything specific? Or... We have to wrap it up. They're going to kick us out. Everyone, happy choice, and thank you for being a lovely audience. Thank you to our guests today.
RTE. Choice music.